Hello and welcome back. I am the Clay Golem and we are continuing our video series to help people new to being a dungeon master get to grips with everything you need to do. So the caveat for all of these videos is make sure you read the comments. There will be, certainly over time, there will be comments from other DMs with other experiences with tips and tricks for you. So really important you read those because I am one person and I know what works for me. It may not work for you. So the more experience you can utilize to help improve the way that you run games, the better, right? That's going to work for everybody. Okay, so what we're doing as part of this is we are working towards building a adventure to run for your very first time. Keeping it from the first video, remember we want to keep it as short as we can, as simple as we can, so that we can focus on the really important parts of being a DM to get a bit of practice and a bit of experience. We can worry about complicated later on. So again, if you are new to playing D&D at all, you've got an extra challenge. We know that. So the way we're building this adventure together, this Curse on Humble Hill, is to help people new to D&D who've go, I want to play D&D. I've got a couple of people who are interested. None of us have played before. Somebody's got to be the DM. That's me. This is for you, and we're building that adventure step by step to work through and provide an adventure for you with everything that you need to understand in the context of these videos of what you need to do and how to run that. And we might even do a little run through of it at some point in the future once it's all completed. If you are an experienced player, and it's your first time DMing, this is going to be useful for you as well. Understand what your DMs have been doing in the background while you've been, relaxing and watching TV and playing games and doing everything else, and they're busy beavering away. Get an idea of what they're doing. So in this video, we are going to jump over to that copy of the adventure that we're starting to build, because we're going to talk about preparation in this video, specifically preparing your NPCs. So rather than they bump into somebody and off the top of your head you've got to come up with all this information about them, what can we do to prepare our key NPCs so that we're ready and we're not flustered and we can just cruise in with it? So we're going to jump over to that and I will see you in just a moment. Okay, so here we are over in the adventure, which is slowly coming together. Obviously this is about NPCs and prepping those, but just to give you an idea of where we are with this, we've got our Curse on Humble Hill and our situation plot where we're creating that background to understand not just what's happening, but why is that happening, and potential hooks into other things. We are going to be doing our introduction, setting the scene. I've not finished that yet, but I will, and I'll cover that in another video. That's not really a how-to, that's going to be about how to run the adventure, so we'll do that much further on. Now we did speak about, before we get to the NPC bit, I promise we're getting there, but as per usual I'm going to segue because it's what I do. Just deal with it, I'm afraid. Remember we talked about in the first video about the idea, very briefly, about 3-room dungeons and stuff like that, and I said that's how we, for new adventures, for new DMs, it's a really, really useful tool to think about breaking down things into 3 components, whether it's 3 rooms in a dungeon or 3 areas. So that's what we're doing with this adventure. So Curse on Humble Hill, this is our first room in inverted commas. You can see that I've introduced a map here for you. This is for the DM with our locations on. There's not loads. They're going to start off by coming to the village hall. Then they're going to investigate, or rather, then they're going to find out what the problem actually is. Then they are going to move on from that to our second room, which is going to be the investigation. So how did this happen? So beyond that very brief kind of, you arrive and confirm that what you were sent here for, in other words, all the crops and things are failing, and actually it's much worse than that, is the people have started falling ill as well now. They're facing starvation, but they've also, some of them have also been poisoned by this so-called miracle grow That's actually a trademark, shouldn't use that phrase, but this miracle plant growth stuff. So they're going to be finding out the cause, and then they will work out by going around that map that Gaunt is actually the cause of it, and they need to track down and find out where he is. Our third and final room, in inverted commas, is infiltrating the lair where they actually go into that dungeon. So we're going to fill all of that out as part of this series. I'm not going to do that all on screen. I'm only going to do videos on the bits to show you how to prepare, and then we'll do an overview of the whole adventure when it's finished. I am including in this adventure handouts so that if you want to print them or have copies to give to the players, you can do so. So there's Humble Hill without the Dungeon Master's tagging on it. And if you want to print it, I've given you a black and white version for that as well, because this is not designed for Foundry. We absolutely can build it in Foundry or Roll20, but I want to make sure this is accessible to anybody who wants to run it. Specifically aimed, of course, at people new to DMing, to give them a really good leg up and lots of support. Including Gaunt's lab. This is the version with the secret passage. I will do a version of this without the secret passage. We don't want to be handing out the map, first of all, with the secret passage on. But this is a bit we want to get to effectively in an appendix where we've got our NPCs. Now, this is the conversation about preparation of your adventure, whatever the adventure is, whether it's this one, whether it's running, Descent into Avernus or Avernus. Why do I always say that wrong? Whatever it is, huge, small, tiny, made up, published adventure, doesn't matter. The balance of preparation versus your time is really, it's difficult to get at first. So that's what we're doing with this. We want to make your life easy as the DM, so you're not having to make stuff up on the fly very often, or as little as possible. So we want to be prepared. I do have a problem with a lot of published adventures where a lot of the NPCs are very flat. It makes it very difficult to make the players care about the individuals and things like that. So you end up having to do a lot of that kind of stuff yourself. And if you're doing it on the fly, so in game, that is a whole skill set in itself. As a brand new Dungeon Master, nobody expects you to be good at that. You might be, naturally, you might be a marvellous storyteller, and brilliant if you are. That's fantastic. For a vast majority of us mere mortals, we need to work at it and continue to work at it. And the tricky part is making that person fit within the world rather than in their own tiny little bubble. How do they interact with the rest of the place? So I find this method is really, really useful, and I use it quite a lot in my preparation, but not every single NPC. If the players are probably going to spend a fair bit of time in conversation with somebody or sees them a lot, then it's really worth doing this bit of prep so that this person becomes consistent and alive rather than just being an extra in the background. You watch TV shows, the extras are on the day, they're given some instructions, sit there, pretend you're talking and eating food, but that's it. They got nothing to do. But anybody who's got speaking parts, they get a script beforehand, they prep it, etc. That's kind of what we're talking about. It's that difference here. So they are going to be speaking to Hilda Applebrew, or incredibly unlikely that they wouldn't. So we want to give a few details. Give a name, and including a surname. Because if you just say, oh yeah, my name's Hilda, and they go, oh, and what's your last name? And then you're on the back foot trying to think it up. Now, experienced DMs do this all the time, and they can just come up with something, and it's normally something silly. The amount of NPCs I've encountered who are called Bob, because it's easy for the DM, is ridiculous. So let's try avoid that if we can. So species and gender, female halfling, nice and easy. Speech. So you don't need to do this. But notice, soft and sultry describes a way that she speaks, not a voice that she uses. So somebody who speaks short and abrupt or gruffly is going to be very different from somebody who speaks softly and slowly, or in this case, she's a little bit sultry. It's a little bit kind of smoky. It's almost like she's flirting with you. It's just naturally the way that she speaks. It helps define her different from other people. And you as the DM, it's suddenly really easy for you to go, oh, that's right, I could do this voice in this way. This is, if you're not comfortable with actually doing voices, fine. But you can moderate the speed and the pitch that you speak in using your own voice to help create some differentiation. So don't feel that you've got to become an actor. Really, really don't. But any kind of moderation you put in helps individuals stand out. But try to be consistent. This NPC always speaks with a squeaky voice. If the next time they see them, they suddenly don't, and they're speaking with a deep voice, you've broken that. You've broken that illusion. You don't want to do that if you can help it. Very simply, we talked again in previous video about mannerisms. It doesn't have to be massive and detailed. It doesn't have to be really extravagant. In this case, I've just said that she tends to flick her head quite a lot. Sort of tosses it to one side. Maybe when she laughs, she's one of these people who throws her head back a lot. Maybe when she's exasperated or surprised, she tends to have quite a lot of head movement. But the thing is, it's not a head moving, it's the fact her hair, her curly hair, bounces around all over the place. Her hair, it kind of comes to life. It's just a little thing that makes her stand out from somebody else. It draws attention to one of her features. Her tightly curled hair is a big kind of indicator for her. She has a job. Now, of course, the job might be beggar, but in this case, she has a job. She's a farmer, like a lot of the other NPCs that are going to be as part of this adventure, because it's a farming hamlet. Everybody within this tiny village is going to be directly involved in survival, the production of or preparation of food and stuff like that. Yeah. There's going to be people, there's going to have to be a smith who makes sure that all the tools for the food preparation and farming are kept up to scratch and serviceable. But they are directly linked to survival of the village. It's too small to support people just hanging around doing nothing because they're going to starve to death. So she's a farmer, but a bit more detail. What does she farm? So she has a small grove of immature pear trees. She's not lived here very long. She's only recently, perhaps last season, planted these trees. They're still small. And she has a field where she grows leafy green vegetables. So salad stuff. So she's growing lettuce and things like that. Maybe spring onions, shallots, depending where you are and what you choose to call things. She provides a majority of the salad leaves required by the village during the warmer months, because that's when those kind of plants grow. So that's her niche within. She's not unique, but that's her niche within it. When she's not able to grow salady type leaves, she grows winter kale throughout the autumn and into winter, as long as that continues to grow. It depends when the snow's arrived. It depends where you are setting this, if you were even concerned about that. It may be it never snows, it just gets a bit cooler, not enough sunlight for the salad leaves, whatever it might be. But she's now got an all year round job. She intends to spend those cold winter nights when things aren't growing using the pears that she's harvested from her trees in the autumn or the fall, again, depending where you are, to making pear cider. But her trees are not yet mature enough to provide the quantity of fruits required for that. So you can see that she's not just alive today. She's got a history and she's got a future just around what she does for her work. And she can talk about those things. Oh, why have you planted pear trees? Oh, well, because I want to do X, Y, and Z. Now, I and a lot of experienced DMs would be able to do that off the top of their head. We don't want new DMs to struggle trying to come up with those kind of details on the fly. It just adds stress. So let's put in a bit of detail in there. Again, I do this as an experienced DM. I do this for my NPCs a lot of the time. Hobbies and interests, all right? It's not all work, work, work. What does she do when she's not? She loves to play games, cards, and dice. She's not a gambler. She might bet a few copper coins just for fun, but she's not a gambler. But she will, if somebody offers her a game of cards or dice and she's got nothing better to do, she's more than likely to say yes. She can play the lyre reasonably well, but she doesn't own one herself. She had to sell it to raise funds to purchase the farmhouse. Brilliant. So now we got an understanding of the journey she's been on to get here, where she is, to fulfill out her dream of being of making cider in a quiet little village in the middle of nowhere, a nice, quiet, peaceful life. That's what she wanted to do, but she had to make some sacrifices. Is that likely to come up? No, it's unlikely to come up. But what if you've got a bard who walks in and is having a chat with her about the adventure, and they happen to have a lyre over their shoulder? Well, suddenly that's a conversation she's definitely going to engage in. That bard now feels special. There's something about that individual character that can connect directly with Hilda here. Or it might just casually come up in conversation for other reasons and things. You know, it depends how heavy or how deep the role play gets. But if it never gets mentioned, fine. It's one sentence. It took less than a minute to put in that detail that could turn into quite an interesting or colourful bit of role play if that happens. It's just popping it in there. It's making her a real person. You know, there's no reason why there couldn't be a link into her lost lyre, or that she really would like one, and I don't know why, but the party might decide to gift her one. I don't know why, but you see what I mean? It makes connections between people. Moving on. Brief physical description. Okay, so she's got a round face, rosy cheeks, masses of tightly curled blonde hair. Frequently grubby with dirt from the fields. Well, that makes sense. She's not going to be immaculately clean all the time. Remember, there's a big difference between different types of farmers and things like that. If you're out there with a scythe cutting down wheat, yeah, it's a dirty job, but it's not dirt under the fingernails job. She's dealing with salad leaves, she's weeding, she's on her hands and knees a lot of the time. So she's going to be that type of grubby. Even immediately after having a bath, she retains this permanent collection of dirt beneath her fingernails. It's so ingrained that's going nowhere. So it's just a little detail they can notice about her. Her clothing is practical, soft leather knee pads sewn on her tough dungarees. She doesn't wear any jewellery of any sort, but frequently uses a red headband to keep her hair out of her face when she's in the fields. So even in this little image here, she's got this headscarf on, keeping her hair kind of out of her way. That gives a little bit of, to do with her mannerisms, if you like. She walks in from the fields, the players go and meet her and she invites them in for a cup of, I don't know, something. When she goes in, the first thing she does is take off her red headband and hangs it on the peg by the door. You see how this helps turn her into a living person with their own routines and stuff that they do. And if the players spent enough, probably not in this adventure, but if they spent enough time around with her, if they went to her house, she wasn't there, and they saw her red headscarf still on its peg, that's the kind of thing where they go, hang on a minute, she never leaves the house without that on, because they know that about this individual. So it just creates them as a real person. Also, if they try to give her jewellery, she might have no interest in it, and she might say, oh, well, thanks for sharing your treasure with me, but I'll probably sell this and buy myself a lyre. Yeah. Okay. Now, adventure integration. I always include this section in here, although a lot of the time it is blank. Let's say that you've got a campaign or adventure that you're running, and they spend a lot of time. It's centered. They camp almost every night at a particular inn. You're going to want to have quite a bit of information about the innkeep and possibly their family or regulars in there. But with that innkeep, they may not be connected in any way, shape or form to the plot of the adventure. So this might be completely blank for them. They are just there to serve them drinks and give them a bed for the night. Fine. You still want them to be alive, but they don't need to be integrated with the adventure. In this case, Hilda's quite important because she can point the players in the right direction once they follow the clues, eventually getting to her, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So Hilda is one of the, yes, I'm aware there's a spelling mistake there, I will correct that, I've just seen it. One of the few people that saw which direction Gaunt went when he left the village, because he didn't just leave by the normal path. When he left, he was heading north. Hilda was in her field weeding her newly planted radish seedlings. And she had to yell at Gaunt not to trample the delicate plants. That's why she remembers which direction he went, because she was out there doing something very specific and was concerned that he might trample her seedlings. She's certain, again, I need to just update that, proofreading. She's certain that his trail through the muddy woods could be followed quite easily because the woods tend to be quite soft soil, etc. And she can take the PCs to the edge of the woods where Gaunt entered them. Now that is, going back to our little map here, now none of this is in the Adventures of Faerun book. None of this is in there. Hilda doesn't exist. This field doesn't exist. This is the details that we're putting in to turn this idea of an adventure into an actual adventure. So this is Hilda's house here. You can see here it's number 3. So they're going to, when they talk to Hilda, she's going to be able to say, well, yeah, I was out in my field planting radishes, or rather weeding my freshly planted radishes. Maybe she did them the previous week or something like that. And Gaunt left, walking up the side of a field and into the woods. So she saw him. She can take them to effectively this area just here at the edge of this field, and point them in the right direction, that then they can follow this trail. If you've got a ranger in the party or somebody who's got survival skills, you can allow the player to actually show off their skills by tracking him. If you don't have anybody as the DM, you want them to succeed in following the trail to get to Gaunt. So don't go, oh, well, actually, it's bone dry and really hard to follow. It's going to require a difficulty class of 20 to follow these tracks, and none of them have any tracking ability. How the heck are you going to get them to that next bit of the adventure? So I'm going with soft mud. It's going to be easy to follow. If you're not confident your players are going to be able to make that roll, don't make them roll. Don't go, oh, the ranger in the party, these are easy enough for you to follow. A child could follow these, and off you go. Don't use a roll that could scupper the plot. But anyway, so because Hilda's going to give them this is going to be the end of our second room, end of the investigation. We don't really want them talking to Hilda and getting that information immediately. So it must be who's going to lead them to Hilda. Now, there's a number of different ways to do it, but perhaps once they've sorted out the issues at Uncle Barney's house and they speak to the family there and try to get some clues, one of them says, oh, I was talking to Hilda and she said she saw him leave. Well, who's Hilda? Oh, Hilda Applebrew. Yeah, no, she lives at the house, the last one on the corner with the carving of an owl outside or whatever it might be. No, she's the one who grows all the salad leaves, whatever it might be. So they can give a bit of information. They're off to see Hilda. Hilda can then lead them on. We don't want them to do that first. We want them to investigate at least a couple of other things before that, so that they've got a build up and they feel like they've actually investigated to get to that clue. Okay, so they're going to follow a clue to a clue to a clue, then to Gaunt's lair. Okay, so, sorry, segued a bit. Of course, that's what I do. So when it comes to that preparation, you can see that even though this adventure is not really written, in my head, I've already got quite a few of how these things start to link together. And that's because I've done this so many times. As a new DM, you've probably never done this before. Maybe you've done a little bit of creative writing, or maybe you've written play scripts and things like that, and you've got a really good idea and you're thinking this is all really obvious. If you've never done it, this is not really obvious, and it can be really difficult for new Dungeon Masters to understand where to start. This advice applies to any role-playing game, by the way, not just D&D, about prepping adventures. It might be a high-stakes, bank robbery in space. You're still going to want to build some of these NPC kind of backgrounds to understand how they are. Deliberately using this adventure because it's small, which means we've got few characters, which means we can give them a good, nice bit of detail. And as a new DM, provide that detail so that you don't have to make it up on the fly. There will be plenty that you have to make up as you go. So if we can reduce that burden, it will be less stressful, which means you will enjoy it more, which means you will learn more, which means you will grow and be enthusiastic about the next time you do it, rather than feeling like, oh, I don't want to be the Dungeon Master because it's a job. It can feel like that. It will feel like that at times, but we want to minimize the number of times it feels like a job, and we want to increase the number of times that you get great joy out of it. They followed my clues. They found where Gaunt is. Ah, fantastic. What a great session. It all went kind of how I wanted it to go. We can't force people, but or rather we shouldn't force them and railroad them down one way. But by creating characters who have a life of their own, they will naturally start to follow some of those clues. They will naturally start to care about these people and they're starving to death. If you've got one of those players who goes, well, do you know what? There's not a single fighter in this village. We could just take it over and live like kings and they could be our slaves. That's a player problem. That's not your adventure problem. And you will need to deal with that differently. There's a whole video on how to deal with those type of players. The short of it is fly straight or get out. But there is a conversation to be had with those kind of players of like, that's not the kind of adventure we're doing here. It's all part of session 0. And we will talk about session 0 as we go on with this. This section here about setting the scene, once I've filled this out, I will go over it with you and talk about that. That we won't really have a session 0 in the same way as we would, because we're going to do a lot of that prep, but that conversation with our player base as part of setting the scene. That's it. I've rambled too much. Leave a like, leave a comment. If you're not subscribed, please do so. You wouldn't believe how much it helps the channel if you like videos, you leave comments. And you subscribe. It does make a ridiculous amount of difference. It shouldn't make that much difference, but it really, really does. Let me know, is there any particular areas of being a new DM that is worrying you, or you're curious about, or you don't understand? I'm going to continue working through this series, doing them in whatever order kind of naturally occurs, but I'm more than happy to segue into a particular topic if that's something that you're kind of hanging out waiting for. We can absolutely do that. If you are a more experienced DM and you have something related to this, so the way that you prepare NPCs, maybe there's more information that you include. What is it that you do? Leave that in the comments, because that will really help out our new DMs. We want as many people being competent DMs as possible, which means we get more players into our fantastic games that we like to play. So we are not all hanging out looking for a group, because there's lots of groups going on, there's lots of people playing and lots of different types of games for us to join. Thank you for watching, very much appreciate it. I am the Clay Golem. I will see you in the next one. Take care now.